In the previous example, we took a look at a couple simple techniques for animating a neon sign. Uh, what we did was we put our objects into groups and then we animated the visibility track of each of those groups. And by doing so, we could get this animation of this stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 turning on and off. In this video, we'll take a look at a more advanced technique. You certainly do not need to use this technique that I'll be showing you in your neon sign. However, you'll see that it's a little more complicated, but it will give you more flexibility. This time, instead of animating the visibility on these different groups, we'll actually be animating the material which I've applied to, in this case, this group of letters here. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to open up the Hypershade. Here you'll see the material which I've applied here. It's this blue neon material. I'll select that material and open up its attribute editor. What I'd like to point out to you is that not only can we animate an object's position, rotation, or scale in 3D space. We can also, of course, animate its visibility, as we did in the previous examples. But in fact, we can animate just about anything. If it can change over time, we can probably animate it. And that is also very true for all of these different material properties that we see here. Let's take a look at one example here. We'll take a look at the incandescence, which is actually giving us the color for our neon sign here, for this material part of it. And I'm going to go ahead and animate that property simply by right-clicking on where it says incandescence. I'll right-click on it and say Set Key. I'll scrub to frame 24, and I'm going to change the color over time. So I'll just take this hue and perhaps I'll drag it over in this direction here. And I'll key that. Again, we're looking at the incandescence property, so I'll key that. And now you'll see that if I scrub in my timeline, the color changes over time. The incandescence property for my neon sign changes over time. Now I'm going to break that animation by right-clicking on incandescence and saying break connection. That'll eliminate that animation. It looks like I actually lost my incandescence color as well, but I'll just reapply that. And we'll take a look at how we can use this for your neon sign. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, we'll start with material being on, and it'll be on for a full second. I will right-click on the incandescence property, set a key, and then over the span of, let's say, 6 frames, so on frame 30, we'll bring the incandescence down, not all the way, but just most of the way down, and I'll key it. I'll go a full second later, let's say, or maybe just half a second. We'll go half a second later to frame 42. I'll key the incandescence again. And then once again, over the span of, let's say, 6 frames, so frame 48, we'll crank up the incandescence and key it. So now, if I play my animation, you'll notice that it will become dimmer, and then come back on. And instead of it just being on or off, we actually get this nice transition over a few frames. Here, I'll scrub through it so we can see it a little more slowly. You'll see that the incandescence becomes less over time. And in fact, this is a little more like an actual neon sign. Now, while we've only animated this one property, do understand that you could animate any of these properties. Now, for the neon sign, probably the one that makes the most logical sense would be the incandescence. We may also, however, need to animate the glow intensity with that incandescence. So let's just take a look. If we bring it here where the neon sign is turned off, and I do a render of it, you'll notice that we still get that glow, which we probably don't want. What I'm going to do is come over here to my frame 24, and I will also animate that glow intensity by setting a key on it. Go to frame 30, where we'll bring it down, key it. Come to frame 42, I'll key the glow intensity again, and then I'm going to key it on frame 48, where let's just see what the number was. We had it at about 0.086. So we'll take that and change it to 0.086. Okay, it's not allowing me to put the number in manually. I don't know why. So I'll just scrub it there and set a key. And now the glow will be animated as well. If we were to render it out at this frame, you'll see that there's no glow. Render it out again at this frame, and we have the glow. In fact, there are a couple of other things I think that we could do to make this look a little bit better. One of those things would be maybe making the color, the actual color, since we're getting most of the color from the incandescence, I'm going to take the color here and I'm going to make it darker. And I'm going to take the specular color as well and work with that a little bit. Maybe we'll make that a little darker as well. Okay. So now when it's turned off, it'll look like this. And when it's turned back on, it'll look like this. Now, one thing that's very important for you to keep in mind with this is that remember that what we've been animating this time, with the previous examples, we animated the visibility of the groups. We were not actually animating the materials themselves. With this example, we are actually animating the material, not the objects. So if I want to adjust the timing on this animation, I can do it the same way, but you have to be aware of what you're actually animating. Remember, you're animating the material, not the geometry. So in this case, I select the group, let's say, for this stage 1. And if we go to the Windows animation dope sheet, for example, you'll see that it has keyframes on it, as do stage 2 and stage 3. But this group here, the material group, has no keys on it. The group itself is not animated. The objects underneath the group as well are not animated. It is the material that is animated. So if I want to adjust its timing in the dope sheet, as we did earlier with the other examples, I would need to select the material itself, and then I can adjust its timing in the dope sheet. Just as an example, let's say that I want the time that it comes back on here to actually take a full second. instead of just 6 frames, what I would need to do is select the key, figure out where that full second would be. So in this case, it's going to be at, let's see, 42, 52, 62, 66 frames. Drag the keyframe there, and now it'll take a full second for that light to come on. Let's check it out. And there it is. One other thing before we wrap this up, again, to really see what these look like, you need to render them out, because that's how you'll see the glow on it. But another thing, if you want to look at it in here in your viewport and make it look a little nicer, what we can do is, of course, hide the grid. And we can also change the background color in our viewport as well. And here's how you would do that. You simply go to Windows, Settings Preferences, Color Settings, 3D Views, and take your background color and make it black. And there is our animation. Now, if I want to get the color back to its default here in these viewports, then all I need to do is return to Windows, Settings Preferences, Color Settings, Edit, Reset to Default, and that will put it back to this default gray. I can also come over here to Show in this viewport and enable the grid once again. In the next video, we'll take a look at a neon sign that I created that uses all these tools and techniques. We'll go through it very, very quickly. I won't go into it in detail, but I would like you to just see how I animated that neon sign using all the techniques that I've shown you in this video as well as my previous video. I hope that this has been helpful for you, and thank you for watching.